Welcome to the Church of Thomas. Angel Eliza. These are excerpts from the book Awakenings in an Age of Angels. This chapter is called Empty Cupboard. There was nothing left when the vultures departed, but an intact family, home, and valuable lesson from Jesus' dad. Mary exposed a chink in the family's armor the next morning. She had not wanted to complain after the miracle of the previous day's ordeal. After 6 months of illness, Joseph, and short payments for work, the cupboard was very short. It was winter and cold outside. The 6 mouths to feed would be very hard to glean enough from the fields. She also rightly saw that the money sack was empty. There were no more roots in the cellar or resting in the garden beds. She had already gathered and used those resources. Mary was rightly worried about starvation. Jesus reminded her that they still had shelter, they were healthy, and they had hands to work the wood. She was less upset, but not calmed. Jesus stayed at the shop as she took the boys and Judas out to gather wood. Jesus sat at the dining table with the last meal the family would see for a while. He had taken the pitcher of wine, a small chunk of cheese, and the last of the bread out to divide it for the family. At least they would eat that night. When he blessed the food, he heard his dad instruct him to go draw water from the town's well. He rebelled, thinking that this was woman's work. It could wait for Mary's return. His dad chided him that all work was family work. Jesus did as he was told. He got the bucket that Mary used to bring water home when their cistern was low. Jesus was jeered at and got strange looks as he carried the bucket through the town to the well. Jesus was strengthened by the words of wisdom dispensed by his dad. He was immune to the hatred behind the teasing jeers of the men and the boys. The averted looks of the women spoke mostly of pity. They had often wished for a strong son who would be so brave to help with this heavy and never-ending labor. When Jesus fumbled with the unfamiliar counterweight arm, one woman stepped forward. She showed him how to work the arm. She showed him how to dip and pour the water with the least amount of water spilled. She was an old widow woman named Miriam. She had gone through a very hard time after her husband died. She did not care what any onlooker thought at this point. The town had already shown their true colors and done their worst. She smelled of excrement. To feed herself, she cleaned latrines, selling the results to local farmers for their fertilizer, for a few coppers to buy her bread. Jesus touched her hand in thanks before trudging home with the bucket. He would always remember her in his prayers. This experience was a turning point for Jesus. He realized that all women were special, not just his mother Mary. He was seeing for the first time the flip side of their work in the world. Getting home, he placed the bucket on the table. His dad chuckled, saying, "Why don't you do what I taught you with the coins?" Jesus had his second turning point of the day. Jesus realized that all elements would answer to his call and do as he asked. When he found he had a nice fruity new wine in the bucket, he smiled. Emboldened, he turned to the bread and then the cheese. When Jesus was done, he was joyous. There was a full round of cheese, a small barrel of sweet and fruity unwatered wine, a dozen loaves of still smelled from the oven's heat of bread. Then Jesus got concerned. He knew that this was to be kept a secret. He knew that he could not share what he knew with anyone, even his mother. His nature made it very hard and uncomfortable for him to lie. He knew that every lie does count. Mary knew the contents of her own cupboard and pantry. That was not like the coins that had been his inheritance. For all she knew, there had been multiple stashes of coins that Jesus, as head of household, was alone privy to. His dad laid a calming hand on Jesus' head. Jesus sat down with a thump and asked what he was going to do to preserve this honor. His dad said, "That's easy. Say it was a gift because you are greatly loved. Just say that and no more. Mary will create her own story of a neighbor who wishes to remain anonymous." Jesus smiled. When Mary and the boys opened the door, they were in shock. The aroma of fresh bread and heady cheese brought tears from Mary. She hurried to the kitchen. She had her hungry family close on her heels. The firewood lay in piles of dropped wood just inside the entry. The questions all spilled out at once. Finally, Mary and the boys realized that Jesus could not get a word in edgewise and quieted. Jesus repeated what his dad suggested that he say, and said no more. Jesus told his mother to sit with the boys at the table. Mary protested, but Jesus refused to budge in his desire to serve his family, their first God-given meal. Mary was sitting in shock and confusion as Jesus got out the plates, cups, and the kitchen's knife. He served everyone that sat and then sat down. He led the blessing as the new provider for his family. It was the first real meal that had been served since Joseph's death. He thanked God for providing for his family. Mary saw the smile. If Mary saw the smile flit like a butterfly across Jesus' face, she never mentioned it.